Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for.
If Penn State had decided, if James Franklin had left on his own. So what I want to do now, I want to talk about a few different variables. I want to talk about a few different things with this. First of all, I think in some ways, this is going to sound crazy. I think in some ways, this actually worked out very nicely for James Franklin. Let me explain why. It's going to sound crazy. First of all, you get $50 million. I sound like Dr. Evil. $50 million. You get $50 million to go away, okay? And again, we don't have all the details. I don't know how much is owed today. I don't know how much is owed within 30 days, within 60 days, if it offsets, if you get another job, what happens, this and that. But why I feel like this is a good deal for James Franklin is really two reasons. One, you get the $50 million. But then two, you get to figure out what you want to do next, right? So James Franklin woke up yesterday, Penn State football coach. He is now unemployed. So he gets to spend a few weeks, a few months, he's probably going to do some media stuff. Let's be perfectly honest. He gets to figure out, does he want to do that for a year, collect some checks, whatever. I remember Matt Rule, the year that he got fired by Carolina. I vividly remember he did media stuff for about 2-3 weeks. When he got fired, he had said, like, I want to go ahead and just take a year off and focus on media and relax. I've been coaching my whole life, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I bring it up because if you remember, he did media stuff. He got fired in probably the middle of October, right around this time. And he did media stuff for about 2 months. He said, don't want to do that for another year. And he got back into coaching right away. So one, James Franklin gets to get paid a lot of money. He'll probably do some media stuff. But here's why I think it's advantageous, is that in some ways, his reputation is sort of more intact than if Penn State had waited until the end of the year. What do I mean by that? Yes, Penn State is 3-3, but he's still largely the coach up until about 2 weeks ago, where basically he was the guy that it was like wins all the games he's supposed to. And yeah, he loses some games, but it's always to the best teams in college football, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the whoever. And so why I think in some ways it actually worked out for Penn State is because, or in some ways it worked out for James Franklin, is because if he had coached out the season without Drew Aller, I think there's a possibility that his reputation obviously takes an even bigger hit than it would have, especially because, let me see one thing, especially we got the frame and everything. Here was the stat, by the way, on James Franklin. The first coach in 30 years to lose consecutive games where they were 20-point favorites. Okay, but why I bring it up is because if James Franklin, if they had let him coach out the year, and without Drew Aller, I think they would have at best gone 6-6, but realistically probably 4-8. Because here's the thing, their next 3 games, Penn State's next 3 games, at Iowa, at Ohio State, Indiana, you're not winning any of those 3 without Drew Aller. And so I only bring it up because if he coached out the season and he goes 4-8, I don't know if anybody would have wanted to hire him. They would have said, okay, it was great that you did this then, but the counter to that is you went 4-8 this year, I can't hire you. Now he gets to get fired. He gets a lot of money. And I think there are jobs where people are going to sit there and say, you know what? All things considered, we could actually do a lot worse than actually hiring James Franklin as our head coach. As a matter of fact, this was the first comment in the chat. Tory Burke Sr., clearly an Arkansas fan. He said, Hogs, do we put him in the running for our gig now or not? Tory is clearly a Arkansas fan. He says, and I think it's a good point, maybe he needs a new spot to refresh like John Calipari did. Maybe, question mark, woo pig suey. And so listen, I think if you're James Franklin and you're coming off of a season where, yeah, it ended poorly, but guess what? You still have won 75% of your games. You still have had a great deal of success. There are a lot of programs that would just die for the consistency of winning 7 to 8 to 9 games a season. I know it's getting tougher in the Big Ten. I know it's getting tougher in the SEC, but I think Arkansas is the perfect example. Listen, Bobby Petrino, I believe it, But Bobby Petrino, like, you know, is he going to win the games needed to have the job full time? I don't know. Well, can you go get James Franklin? You can probably get him on the cheap. Listen, I don't know this, but you could probably keep Bobby Petrino as the offensive coordinator. Now, how would that work? I don't know. But James Franklin, I'll say this. James Franklin has been in the SEC and has taken a program that is deemed to be one of the weaker programs in the SEC, and he has led them to success. Vanderbilt won 9 games in back-to-back seasons under James Franklin. And so to Tory Burks' point, you know, if he goes to Arkansas, is there that possibility of like, you know what, maybe he did just need a fresh start and maybe he can have success at Arkansas? I'll tell you this, I do think he would bring more stability, especially with NIL, especially with rev share. I've said it all along. I think Arkansas is a better job today than it was when Sam Pittman got there because of rev share, because of NIL. And with the right coach, they are going to have support. And I think with James Franklin, got to hire the right OC, got to hire the right DC. But Bobby Petrino's already there. And if it goes sideways, you know, does that make sense for him? I'll say this. You know, we had this in the chat the other day. By the way, I need some water because I've talked for about 2 hours straight this morning. But we had this in the chat this morning of, you know, or on Thursday, excuse me. Give me 1 second. Get a little water here. Kentucky. So Kentucky, listen, I think Mark Stoops is out after this year. I don't know how it works. You know, Matt Jones last week said that he thinks that Kentucky will pay the entire buyout for Mark Stoops if necessary. Like, you know, if you're going to pay Mark Stoops $50 million to go away or $40 million to go away, you're going to have to hire a coach on the cheap. Well, get somebody that just got a buyout. Get somebody who, oh, by the way, has had a great deal of success again at a bottom tier SEC program in James Franklin. And so will it happen? I don't know. Kentucky's one of the few jobs that I'm going to reference here that doesn't have an opening right now. But I just bring it up because to me, why can't you go get James Franklin? He's available. You can get him at cost, probably cheap. And at some point, you're going to move off of Mark Stoops. And by the way, I don't even know if I'm saying James Franklin should be the number one candidate. What I'm just saying is that he is available, and I think Kentucky could do a lot worse if it opens. Virginia Tech, another example of a program that basically the job is open. That's the one where if James Franklin had been looking for an exit strategy after getting fired, I think everybody joining us now knows that James Franklin was fired. But if James Franklin had been looking for an exit strategy, that's the one that made sense. The ACC, I think, frankly, once you get past once you get past Miami in the ACC, I think there's a situation where a lot of those jobs feel very, very, very winnable, and you can build there. And I know Virginia Tech isn't what it was 20 years ago, but guess what? Florida State ain't what it was 20 years ago. Clemson ain't what it was 10 years ago. And so is Virginia Tech a spot. It's in that same geographic area. You recruit a lot of the same areas. A lot of Penn State's best players are from Virginia. And so I look at the situation at Penn State. I look at the situation with James Franklin, and I think he's going to have options. Again, is it Kentucky if they fire Mark Stoops? Is it Arkansas? Listen, I don't know that I trust Hunter Yurachek to actually make a move and actually do the things that you need to do as the AD to get the right coach in place. But I'd be on the phone with him tomorrow. And I'm not saying he's the perfect candidate. I'm saying he's worth a phone call, though. Dude that won 80% of his games, 77, 78% of his games in the Big Ten. I think that guy's worth a phone call if you're Arkansas. So does Arkansas get in the mix? Does Virginia Tech get in the mix? The other one I've said from the beginning, UCLA. Now, UCLA might never lose ever again. So that kind of throws a monkey wrench into everything. They might just never lose ever again. But assuming that they do, I think you could do a lot worse than James Franklin. Again, knows how to recruit, knows how to build a program. He does need good coordinators around him. Jerry Neuheisel's elite. I mean, Jerry Neuheisel is one of one. If Jerry Neuheisel could survive the Mora, the Chip Kelly, and the whatever era we're in right now, there's no reason he can't stay on with James Franklin. And there's no reason he can't continue having success. I'll tell you this. Let me just throw it out there. James Franklin as head coach, Jerry Neuheisel as OC, and I know we like to criticize Nico, and I've been guilty of it as well. That's not a bad foundation to open 2024 2026. Now you need other things. You obviously, there's a lot of work that you need to do, and you need a DC as well. But I think you could do a lot worse if you're UCLA than James Franklin. So that's why I think it works out well for Penn State, is because of the fact, or for James Franklin, is because he's going to get a crap ton of money. And then on top of it, on top of getting a crap ton of money, he is also going to potentially have a chance to handpick the job that he wants. Now, he's not going to be a candidate everywhere. Some places aren't interested, but Arkansas, Virginia Tech, UCLA, those are all jobs that on some level make sense. Kentucky, if they eventually fire Mark Stoops.